Wanna say hi to YouTube? Wanna say hi? No. Hi YouTube and welcome back to DOFWORKS animation. In today's video I'm gonna talk a little bit about stop motion eyes. I'm gonna show you the eyes I use for my chicken character, but I'm also gonna share with you a few other ways that you can make eyes that fits your puppet. Characters can look very different, and of course there are also a lot of different ways to make eyes. My chicken has eyes on the outside. They are popping out of his head. That makes it very easy to just change the direction. I also have a lot of spares with different expressions, different eyelids, so I can just remove his eyes. They are just pushed into the plasticine, and then you just grab another eye, replace it, and that's it. Well, that's one of them. Right? Sometimes I'm sculpting the eyelids a little bit. I sometimes change them if I need a different expression, but I have some to start with, and that makes it very easy. I really only have to resculpt the eyelids if if his eyes are looking tired and I want him to look from left to right or something. You don't want the whole eye with eyelids to turn. You only want his eye behind the eyelid to turn. So that takes a bit longer, but I mostly just animate him turning his head, and I won't have to resculpt the eyelids that much. Eyes, eyes, baby. If your character's eyes are buried inside the head and you only see some of them, then you'll need to do something else. You can either use some kind of eye with a hole in it. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a hole in the middle of this one. And if you bury this inside the clay, then you grab a needle or something pointy, put it into his eye. It sounds a bit brutal, but then you can turn the eye around without having to remove it from the character. I would still make a few different eyelids, so you could just place them on top of your character, so you won't have to resculpt everything around his eye each time. Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm sorry if I seem a bit distracted. I'm babysitting a dog today, so. I think I'm gonna. Can you say hi YouTube? Can you say like and subscribe? Okay, I'm gonna. I think we're gonna take a walk and then I'll be back. Materials. These are wooden pearls. Just wooden pearls with a hole in them. Simple as that. And I used a marker to make the pupils. And make sure that you use a marker that is not water-based, but a more permanent marker, because otherwise when you are sweating just a little bit in the studio lights on your set, then you will start to smudge it out. So use a permanent marker. Another way you can make eyes is by just having the white eye as part of your puppet with no pupil on them. Then you cut it out, the pupil, from something separate, so you can just move the pupil around. You can use a little bit of water to get it to stay where you want. It just has to stay there until you have taken your picture. No one will be able to tell if the actual eye is moving or if it's just the pupil. That's a bit like papercraft animation, where you just have different layers. You have the eye in the background, then you have the pupil on top of it, and you can move it around and it will look like the actual eye is turning. That's a very useful technique for some. That's a very useful technique for some puppets. If you look at Max from Adam Elliott's Mary and Max, my personal favorite, his eyes has this weird shape, sort of like a pear. And if I had a character like that, I would probably use a separate black dot on top of the eye that I could just move around. Of course, you can also buy some different types of eyes for stop motion. I haven't tried any of these myself. I really want to try the acrylic eyes at some point. Maybe I'll make a video about them if I choose to buy them at some point. But I found that this works very, very well for me. And it's cheap, just wooden poles. Again, this is a hobby project, so I really have to do everything quite cheap. Not even sure that it's necessary to mention this, but these eyelids are obviously made from plasticine. Just make a lot of different expressions with eyes like this. As you can see, there's eyelids on the top, but you can also use them like this. Oh, I also have some. These are just round balls of purple plasticine. That's for when his eyes are closed. Eyes like these are great. Just a sec. Eyes like these are great because you can turn them. This is like he's not too impressed right now. If you turn them around like this, that's an entirely different expression. Another thing that you can do is just with a slight angle, he suddenly looks a lot more angry. And of course, you probably already guessed it, but the other way around. Okay, that was a bit too much. Let's see. Now he looks sad. So as you can see, just one pair of eyes can actually be used for several expressions. At least some of them. Obviously, that's not the case with these. I really like eyes. You can tell so much by the look of the eyes. I think that's why Gromit is so popular. I've always been a huge fan of Wallace and Gromit, and Gromit is a perfect example of a character that just shows, he almost shows more expression than Wallace. Maybe also because Wallace is a bit in his own world and not always realizes what's actually going on. But Gromit does, and he really shows it in his expressions. Obviously, because he can't talk. I remember in A Close Shave, the third of the shorts with Wallace and Gromit. In the Danish version, they are speaking for Gromit, so you hear what he's thinking, and that's just weird. You don't want Gromit to have a voice, even if it's just in his head. Obviously, I watched the Danish version when I was a kid, and when he's reading the newspaper, for instance, the headlines are in English. So to make Wallace and Gromit watchable for kids, they chose to read out the headlines in Gromit's thoughts with an actual voice in Danish. That's strange, because Gromit says so much already. He's very well animated. There has been a lot of great mute characters through the years, and when they are animated well, then eyes and body language are just almost saying more than the characters who are actually speaking. There's a lot of people that talks a lot, but without saying anything. And maybe that's why we tend to like these mute characters. I also feel like Kenny from South Park is a very likable character. And yes, we hear him speak once in a while in the South Park movie. We even get a look on his whole face, but he's mostly just eyes and then... And people seem to like that. I really enjoy drawing this chicken character because it's exciting to work with a character where you can experiment with face expression. I don't know, it's just fascinating to me. I hope at least some of you found a few usable informations in this video. Remember, you can also follow DOFWORKS on Instagram if you want to see more of my drawings and other projects. More chickens. I also have another YouTube channel. For now it's mostly time lapses, mainly for drawings and sculpting and non-animation related content. DOFWORKS. So feel free to check that out. Also, please give this video a thumbs up or a thumbs down. if that's how you feel. Either way helps me out. If you're new to this channel, feel free to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. If everything goes as planned, I'll be back with another video about maintaining a puppet. And until then, keep animation alive.